fascinating cases in the world, and it's also extremely sad and tragic. It's a love triangle that ended really badly for all three of them, and this story has been the inspiration for a lot of literary work, and Hitchcock was fascinated by this case and wanted to realize a documentary based on this story. I need to apologize for the traffic noise. I live next to the main street, and although it's really late that evening, there are a lot of cars in the street. People are going out. So I was telling you that this story is a tragic love triangle story, and the name of the characters, the real characters to say so, are Edith Thompson and Frederick Bywaters. Their case became a cause célèbre, which means that they became famous in the whole world at that time. And as I was telling you, their case still fascinates a lot of writers and detectives. So, Edith Thompson was born Edith Jessie Graydon. She was born on the 25th, on Christmas Day, on 25th of December 1893 in London, and she was the first of the 5 children of William Graydon, who was a clerk, and his wife Edith Jessie Graydon, the daughter of a police constable. Edith had a very happy childhood. As you can see, she came from a very good family. She was extremely smart, talented, very gifted girl who loved dancing and also acting. She had a brilliant mind, academically speaking. She was considered a very bright student, and she was really good at arithmetic. She loved reading. Reading was one of her escaped. She quickly established a reputation as a stylish and intelligent woman, and was promoted by the company several times until she became the chief buyer and made regular trips to Paris on behalf of the company. So she was very smart lady ahead of her times. Smart, independent. She earned her own money, so she was a modern young lady for her times. When she was only 15 in 1909, Edith met Percy Thompson, who was 3 years older than her. They liked each other, but people said that they were totally different. Edith was smart and outgoing, with a very open mind, and with a lot of modern point of views, while Percy was the more traditional way. He loved his wife to be that kind of stay-at-home wife, just to stay at home and raise the children, and so on. They got engaged, and after 6-year engagement, they got married on the 15th of January 1916. They lived with her family at first, but they ended up buying a house at number 41 Kensington Gardens in a very fashionable London suburb of Ilford. They bought this house in July 1920. They both had flourishing careers and they lived a comfortable life. But the one who brought more money in the house was Edith. She earned far more than her husband, and her husband had always wanted her to stay at home because he considered that he earned enough to support both of them. Also, he wanted children, and Edith didn't want, at least at first she didn't want any children. She just wanted to romances and literary heroes. She loved creating her own fantasy worlds, and in 1920, the couple became acquainted with a very young man. He was practically a teenager, the 18-year-old Frederick Bywaters. Still, they had met before 9 years prior, when Bywaters, then aged only 9, had been a school friend of Edith's younger brothers. Frederick was a good friend of Edith's brother, and he was dating her sister. Frederick Bywaters had enlisted in the Merchant Navy. The 26-year-old Edith was immediately very attracted to Bywaters, who was the exactly and total opposite of her husband. He was handsome, he was impulsive, he was always ready to tell stories about his travels around the world, and those stories were extremely exciting, fascinating for Edith, who loved romantic adventures. She was only dreaming about such things. For her, this handsome young man, brave and free and impulsive, for her he was her romantic ideal. Her husband was 29 years old at the time. Seemed so ordinary, so conventional, that Edith stopped feeling any sort of attraction to him. It was evident that there was no romantic attraction between Percy and his wife, but they were happy to have such a friend as Bywaters, and probably Percy considered him too young to be a danger for his marriage. So they started some sort of, let's call it ménage à la trois, without knowing where they were into. So the trio, joined by Edith's sister, went on holidays together. They went on holiday together on an isle, and when they returned from the holiday, Percy considered that it would have been a great idea to invite Bywaters to live with them. And like in romantic novels, an affair started. was extremely angry and threw him out of his house. So he ordered him out of the house. He stopped being the tenant. From September 1921 until September 1922, Bywaters was at sea. And during this time, Edith Thompson wrote to him frequently. Imagine that there was no internet. It's obvious that there wasn't, so they had no means of meeting, seeing each other, except for writing, and Edith found in these letters some sort of refugee. She took everything that was inside her heart and soul, took everything out and used all those pieces inside her to create those letters. They were extremely passionate letters. She described her love for him, but there was also a lot of despair in them because she felt trapped as a bird in a cage. She was trapped in a marriage. She could not see any way out. Back then, divorce was some sort of stigma, especially for women, of course, and it was not an option. So she would have become some sort of pariah in the eyes of the society. And she was fantasizing, she was dreaming of getting rid of her husband somehow. And she shared her thoughts with Bywaters, writing to him about this. Writing to him that she could not stand the situation any longer, that she was dreaming of putting glass pieces into his food, or poisoning him, or finding a way to get rid of him, because she was totally desperate. Remember that she was a very talented writer. She was an avid reader, and somehow these letters contained a big load of fantasy also. Not only real things from her heart and soul. After his return, they start meeting up again, of course. On the 3rd of October 1922, C. Thompson and his wife attended a performance at the theatre in London Piccadilly Circus, along with Edith's uncle and aunt. They left the theatre that night at about 11 p.m. and all went to Piccadilly Circus tube station, where they separated. The Thompsons caught the 11:30 p.m. train. As they walked along Belgrave Road, a man jumped out from behind a bush. They were could ask for help. The attacker fled. Neighbors later reported hearing a woman screaming and shouting a code, "Oh don't, and code several times. And by the time police arrived, she had still not composed herself. At the police station the following day, she was totally distressed. She was not aware of the fact that Bywaters was already a suspect. He was arrested that evening and taken to the police station. From what I've read, this happened due to one of Edith's neighbors' testimony. People gossip, and they told the police about the affair. The police confronted her with Bywaters, and one of the inspectors told her he was lying, that Bywaters had already confessed. She then admitted to the police that she knew who the attacker was and provided the police with details of their plan to get rid of her husband. The police started investigating, of course, and it was easy for them to discover the letters. Remember those letters I was telling you about? It was a series of more than 60 love letters from Edith and addressed to Bywaters. The letters were the only evidence linking Edith to the killer. So this was the only evidence they had against her, and still she was accused of murder together with her lover. So Edith, Thompson and Frederick Bywaters were each charged with murder. The trial was a circus, of course, and the story was in every possible newspaper. And at first, the public opinion was against Edith. The scarlet letter women had to wear. She was considered, of course, a sinner, someone who betrayed her husband. Still, the trial began on the 6th of September 1922 at the Old Bailey, and the prosecution for the Crown was led by the Solicitor General Sir Thomas Inskip. Bywaters cooperated completely. He had led police to the murder weapon he had concealed after the murder and consistently maintained that he had acted without Edith's knowledge. Edith, he did his best to save her. He loved her so much that he wanted to save her, sacrificing himself. Edith Thompson love letters were produced as evidence, of course. They considered that Edith instigated Bywaters to murder. The extended letters date from November 1921 to the end of September 1922. They ran to over 55,000 words, and afford a day-to-day accountant of her life in London when her love for Bywaters was at sea. In a few passages of these letters she writes about her longing to be free of her husband Percy. She refers to pieces of light bulbs, and she writes about wanting to fit these pieces of glass to Percy mixed into his mashed potatoes. On another occasion, she was writing about feeding him a poison. She wrote of a woman who had lost 3 husbands and remarked that she was not able of losing not even one. Edith Thompson was advised not to testify, but she didn't listen, and she refused the advice. She was determined to give evidence, imagining that she could save Bywaters. But she couldn't do this. She made a poor impression on the judge and on the jury when she repeatedly contradicted herself. She had claimed that she had never attempted to poison her husband, and what she was writing about in her letters were only attempts to impress her lover. In answer to several questions relating to the meaning of some of the passages in the letter, she just said that she didn't have any idea. Bywaters stated that Edith hadn't known anything about his plans, and that he didn't intend to murder his husband only to scare him, to harm him somehow. His aim was to confront Percy, to force him deal with the situation, and when Percy threatened to shoot him, he reacted. Bywaters had lost his temper, and he repeatedly claimed that Edith Thompson had never suggested to him to harm Percy in any way or to kill him. In discussing the letters, Bywaters stated that he had never She had a very vivid imagination, fueled by the romance, by the novels she enjoyed reading, and in her letters she viewed and portrayed herself as some sort of fictional romantic character. But life is not a novel, you know. And on the 11th of December, the jury returned with the verdict of guilty against both of them. Both Edith and Bywaters were formally sentenced to death by hanging. Edith became hysterical and started screaming in the court, while Bywaters loudly protested. Edith Thompson's innocence, stating that the verdict of the jury was wrong and Edith was not guilty. Before and during the trial, as I was telling you, both of them were subjects of highly sensationalist and critical media commentary. However, after they had been sentenced to death, there was a dramatic shift in public attitudes and in the media coverage. Almost 1 million people signed a petition against the imposed death sentences. Bywaters in particular attracted admiration for his loyalty and protectiveness towards Edith, but she was widely regarded as the controlling mind that had set it all up. Also, it was not normal to hang a woman. No woman had been executed in Britain since 1907. But despite the petition and a new confession from Bywaters, in which he once again declared Edith to be completely innocent, the Home Secretary refused to grant a reprieve. A few days before the executions, Edith Thompson was told that the date had been fixed, at which point she totally lost it. She spent the last few days of her life in the state of near hysteria, crying, screaming, moaning, and being unable to eat. On the 9th of January 1923, in Holloway Prison, the 29-year-old Edith Thompson collapsed in terror at the prospect of her hanging. She had been heavily sedated by the prison governor, and almost unconscious. She was carried by 4 prison warders. In the Pentonville prison, the 20-year-old Frederick Bywaters, who had tried since his arrest to save Edith from imprisonment and execution, was himself executed. The 2 executions occurred simultaneously at 9 a.m. only about a half-mile apart, as the 2 prisons are located in the same district. Despite the fact that there was no evidence of any kind in the letters, or otherwise that Edith Thompson knew that her husband would have been assaulted that night, in particular place and in that manner. The Solicitor General stated in his opening address to the jury that there is the undoubted evidence in the letters upon which you can find that there was a prayer meeting between Mrs. Thompson and Bywaters at the place. As only half of Edith's letters were submitted to the courts, the jury may well have been led to believe that indeed there was evidence, and the jury seemed to be influenced by the judge openly expressed disgust concerning Edith's immorality and the immorality of the letters. So the jury had been instructed somehow to find Edith guilty, and nowadays that the verdict and the execution of Mrs. Thompson is considered a miscarriage of mercy and justice. She was indeed an adulteress, but you do not hang a woman for adultery. They had performed an autopsy on her husband, and there was no trace of glass or poison in his body, so it was indeed, everything was indeed only in her mind. She viewed herself as some sort of romantic character. It was probably not her intention to strike down her husband for real. He did not die by poison or powder glass. There was no evidence that she put poison or glass in his food. There is no evidence that at any time in any way she ever made an attempt on the life of her husband. There is no evidence that she was guilty of complicity in the crime. There was no evidence that she was an accessory before. There was no evidence, but still, she paid with her own life. Sometimes life is more cruel than any horror story that we can ever imagine. I was really impressed by this story, and although it had happened 100 years ago, I still feel the sadness, and I feel a lot of compassion for Edith and even for Bywaters and for the husband. In fact, they were, all of them, victims. Thank you very much for listening my story. If you enjoyed my whisper story, please drop a like, and if you are new here, please consider subscribing. Also, let me know in the comments below what you think love triangles generally end up in divorce, but sometimes